Okay. Tell me about it.
Oh, actually, it's a good movie. I like that. Oh, you said Predator 2 or Friday 2?
Predator 2 next Friday. They're the same movie.
Okay.
One just
No,
has,
I
You
did
can't
like
just say
Predator
that.
2. I'm not gonna
Tell
lie.
me how the fuck you what? Come on.
What premise do you have of this?
It's just it's better than the one of Adrian Brody. I mean, Danny Glover doesn't have Adrian Brody's nose. It's a good movie.
No.
That's all I'm saying. It also has Gary Busey.
Are you talking about Predator 2 with
He's got
Danny
chiclets
Glover
for
or
fucking
the
teeth.
remake
Predator
of
2 with
Predator?
Danny Glover.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I like
It
it.
is a good movie. It's just like
I do. I really do like it.
Like I think it's.
I
up
like
there.
it better than 1.
I mean, it's not as
Predator
good
2?
as Predator.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I could see the argument. It's probably the storyline's more well put together, but I think the initial response that you get from Predator and first seeing the monster, I liked that more. I feel like they didn't even show him as
original.
much.
Yeah.
Like that's what made him scary. Just like with the Alien, like when the Alien movie franchise came out, they didn't really show the alien that much at first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, I mean, CGI also wasn't that fucking good at the time, but still, it made it almost more scary because you couldn't fucking see it.
I like Predator 2 because it's in a modern day setting rather than like
It was
some
it
jungle
was
in the-
very
When was,
90s.
when was the other one set? That was like Vietnam
like
era.
not modern day in terms of time. I mean modern,
first
like in
Predator
the
was
urban
87.
landscape. I should say that
It
that
was-
it was in the city.
Okay, yeah. Fuck, I need to catch up on that. Fuck, those old movies. Do you guys remember Freddy vs. Jason?
Yeah, I remember Freddy vs.
Oh
Jason.
my god, man. One of the best movies of all time.
Do you
remember
remember
Jason
Jason
like it.
X?
Jason X, yeah, where
did
he
like
beats
that
somebody
movie.
to death
Yes.
while they're inside of a
Sleeping bag.
sleeping bag.
That movie is great for all the
could
wrong
never forget
reasons. It is not a good movie.
No, it's not.
I can see
Come on,
two
they have
metal
Jason in
fans.
space. Like,
At
come
that
on.
point, I just said, yeah, fuck it. No one's here for a plot.
No, they just want to see a dude in a fucking hockey mask go and kill some fucking teenagers that are fucking up.
You know, just put him on the moon. I don't care.
I can see
need
two metal
Quaaludes.
fans really liking these movies. That's a
Harvey
metal
Weinstein, man.
thing, definitely.
Oh my god. All right, so now that we're a little bit far into the intro here, we should probably tell you who the fuck is talking right now. I'm Joe Beasley. I'm one of the producers here, and by one, I mean I'm the only producer here, I guess. I run Comedyhound Productions. To my right, I got Bert Young.
What's up? I'm Bert Young. I am a co-host here. I also run Exit Stage Left Comedy out of Kankakee, Illinois, and hopefully going to other places soon. And just looking to be here, having some fun.
My name is Kyle Allen. Well, I'm on this show, so that's all I got going for me right now.
Oh my god.
I mean, you kind of like upped the ante. You said, "Yeah, I'm the producer here." I was like, "Oh, I don't got producing."
Well,
credits."
but yeah,
I write
well,
a few, dick jokes at open mics, but that's really about it.
hey,
Kyle,
during
we're
the
comedians, so
Dolezal
we're
interview,
writers.
Bert over here slighted me. He's like, I got Kyle over here, and fuck Joe. He didn't even say anything about me. I'm like, fuck.
I
So
thought Cal was gonna bring you on.
Yeah,
That's the thing. I thought
halfway
we were
through
just
the
gonna-
podcast, I'm like, I have to introduce myself. I'm like, shit.
You
'Cause I
did do
wanna,
that,
like-
didn't you? I didn't think
did.
about that.
I
He
went
goes,
Joe here.
Hello, I'm Joe.
Yeah.
The one that puts up the
well, this is a
sound
little
here."
weird. Oh my god. Fucking Bert.
But when I
Bert.
introduced her, I said there was going to be two people. There's going to be two people speaking.
Exactly. That's why I think she was a
Yeah.
little thrown off. She's like, it was only you two talking
No,
for a
no,
while.
two is
And
in
for a
you two
while, I
and
felt
me.
weird. I was
Yeah.
like,
No,
should
two
I
is
not
in
talk?
no, two is in you two and me. Because I said there'd be three people.
Fuck you, Bert. Nah, I'm just fucking playing with you, man. Oh my god. But you guys are in for a fucking amazing interview. And if you aren't aware of what we're going to be talking about, Rachel Dolezal, you should watch her Netflix documentary. You should read her book in full color. Check out her website, racheldolezal.com, right? Also follow braidingfreedom.org. That's something that she's been supporting. If you don't know, it's not legal to braid hair in all 50 states.
Which is amazing.
It was mind blowing to me.
I feel
had no
stupid
idea.
saying that sentence.
Right. Now, if anyone needs like just a quick rundown of who Rachel Dolezal is, so Rachel Dolezal used to be the president of NAACP in Spokane, Washington, until in 2015 when she was outed as being white. Now, this, of course, started a huge controversy and scandal, and also it ignited debate of could you be transracial, and also it really ignites conversations about identity, and if you could be true to yourself while also not exactly being true to other people on the surface. So yeah, this was definitely a great opportunity, and really a fascinating venture into just the whole concept of identity and race as a construct.
And we talk about other bullshit too. I mean, we break down a lot
we
of.
cast a wide net. I mean, really, we have a lot of people, some of you that you may know, some of you that you may not know yet, but there is one common thread to every one of our guests, and that is they said yes to be on this show.
This
Maybe
is invite
reluctantly,
only. You can only come here if we tell you that you can come here.
No. And I honestly think with that interview too, I think in terms of that, it wasn't like a news clip that you would see on Facebook or Instagram. It
No,
wasn't
not
one
at
of
all.
these things you see on Fox News and we get the hot take and then go on from there. This is a detailed hour and 15-minute interview, and we really try and get to the depths of things like racial identity all the way up to the point
Right.
of how some of that was viewed within the African American community, and how we can look at it in terms of a different perspective on it. And I think Rachel does a really good job of illustrating her point of view, and not in fact how will I say, not in fact of like really kind of thwarting off detractors, but in terms of seeing where she's coming from, and I think we did a decent job of seeing the whole landscape of how we view this, because it's a really interesting, it's a very complex situation there.
It's definitely a different view of her than anybody else has fucking seen.
And I
mean,
ask of the
yeah.
of the viewers this: Rachel has endured a lot of criticism and derision over the years. Whether that criticism is earned or justified is up to the listener to decide. I personally do not share any derision or criticism, but I will say that please approach this with an open mind and listen to her, because aside from all the controversy and the scandal, this is really just a mother who's just trying to make the world a better place for her children.
That's amazingly put. And you could follow all of us on social media at, you could follow me at Joe Beasley Comedy on Instagram, Facebook. I'll be on Twitter. You can also follow Comedyhound. That's comedy_hound at Facebook and Instagram also. And the Odtoy podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We're going to be on Twitch. We're going to be doing a lot of big things coming here. We'll be integrating video and, live chats and ways to get you guys really involved. Just bear in mind right now, we're just trying to release some cool stuff while we have the means. We didn't expect to interview somebody as cool as this guest so early, but it would just be stupid for us to just pass the opportunity up. So we're going to bring this to you before we start integrating video into our podcast, but I'm sure you guys are going to love it. And if you still have something against Rachel by the end of this podcast, then you might have some interior problems that you need to look forward to.
And if you still have negative views of Rachel after listening to this podcast, well, first of all, I gotta say thank you for listening to the entire episode. That's
right.
That's major.
Yeah, that's pretty
and
impressive.
second, actually, that's it. Thank
Maybe
you for
if
listening.
they still hate her by the end and they're still listening to the podcast, it's because they're too fucking stupid to turn off the podcast.
Hey, either way, that's just a view for us.
Well,
Sorry,
and,
guys.
and we have to really thank
throw a little heat.
Yeah, we have to thank Rachel too for actually doing
Yes,
that podcast.
absolutely.
For someone
And
that's
Rachel,
doing their first episode.
if you're listening to this, I sure as hell hope that we're doing you justice. And let's get started with this conversation.
All right. And we will start the intro music. That shit that people dance to in the clubs right here. What was that rap you were doing before?
Oh, fucking now. I get the bag by Gucci Mane.
Yeah, come on.
The bag of flipping and tumbling. Straight up the line, straight up the cash.
Come on, get it, Bert.
Yeah.
We ain't tripping, we just kick it back, smoking blood.
That joke is easy to work on.
Here we go.
Hello. Hey, Rachel. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. What's up? This is me. I'm Bert Young. This is my host, Alan.
Hi there.
Thank you very much for being our very first guest.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, man. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Just kind of a cold summer day.
And you're out in
Christmas fun isn't out here.
Oh, you're out in Washington, right?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? I mean, with all the rain, it's just I know that we've been getting like a lot of crappy weather, but you guys have gotten that for centuries.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the east side of the state, so it's not as rainy as like Seattle, on the west side, but it's definitely cold because it's the Northwest. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of the climate here personally, but you just adjust and adapt to where you're at. So that's what we've done.
Now, how long have you been living in Washington? Because I remember looking up your Wikipedia page and said you were from Montana. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, first of all, Wikipedia has a whole bunch of stuff wrong, and
Yeah,
I can't
as
fix
the
it
nature of the site.
'cause,
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
so like I would always recommend reading my book
Yeah.
as opposed to looking up Wikipedia or Googling
Mhm.
stuff just because it's the only accurate source out there. But yes, I was born in Montana, but I didn't move from Montana to Washington. I went to college in Jackson, Mississippi
Okay.
for undergraduate, and then I went to Howard University in DC for grad school. And
Okay.
then in 2003, moved to Idaho because my then husband at the time got a job there and wanted to leave DC for Idaho.
Mhm.
And so, that's how I ended up back in the Northwest. And then we got divorced in, it's been 14, a little over 14 years that we got divorced. So I actually can't move more than 30 miles from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, until my middle son, who is, from that marriage, is graduate high school. So he has one more year here. It's been like a 15-year sentence of being stuck here.
That's
Got
one way
one
of
more
putting it.
year to go. He's going to be a senior this year, so yay for that,
Oh.
right?
Now you said Jackson, Mississippi. Where at? Because I got people from Jackson, Mississippi.
So I lived in West Jackson, and I went to college at Belhaven
Okay.
in North Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a couple of relatives that graduated from Jackson State.
Yeah. Yeah. Jackson State is, of course, closer to West Jackson than Belhaven, but West Jackson was where I felt at home. But then, I went to school in North Jackson, and it's funny because as a school that was originally an all-female, all-white school, my mentor in Jackson, Mississippi, when I was in college, Spencer Perkins, he was the first black student to integrate Belhaven College. And now it's Belhaven University, but it was Belhaven College when I went there. And yeah, so he was the first person to integrate the school. And then he became my mentor. And when I went there, I worked really hard to change things at the school. I actually instituted the first African American history program or course there, and they still have that class today. So that's
Wow.
amazing after 20 years. And it was about 5% black population on campus student population when I started as a freshman, and I worked with the president to recruit and retain more black students. And by the time I graduated as as a senior there, there was about 15% black, and now it's over 50% black. So they,
Wow.
it's the same
That is
president.
amazing.
20 years later, he's still there. So, yeah, it's definitely just been quite a journey from there to then DC, which I love DC. I love the East Coast. Um, and then yeah, to Idaho of all places where things really went south with the already rocky marriage, but that's a whole nother story. And then
I was gonna say,
Understand.
anytime anyone has me move to Idaho, there's definitely gonna be a fucking problem.
right. Yeah, that's an isolation move there. So that kind of tells you some stuff about, like it was a controlling and abusive marriage. But, it's over and it's been over for a very long time. And I'm glad that, we're on civil terms now. He's still not remarried or anything, but, he's still in Idaho. He's still in Hayden, Idaho, the home of the Aryan nations.
Yeah, he lives in Idaho, so that's basically his sentence.
No, I think he loves it, because he actually grew up in West Jackson, but he kind of grew up with the mentality of like you want to live in a white neighborhood, you want the job white people have, you want the car, the car white people drive, like that's the pinnacle of success.
Hmm.
And so, since that was kind of like just taught to him from TV to just all the input growing up as a kid, I think he just really feels like he's arrived as, like I'm not I'm not sure all of his neighbors in Hayden, Idaho feel as elated that he's there as he does, but he's a tall black dude that lives in Hayden, Idaho, and he's about a block or two down from the sheriff, so
That's just
he feels like that's a safe neighborhood, and in my opinion, that's like a very unsafe neighborhood for my son to go to as a black teenager,
yeah, and it's just
But
really interesting that that you had a husband that wanted that type of lifestyle, because I'm in a racial relationship myself, and
mhm,
I just never saw it that way. I just
mhm,
I've dated all different types of people, but I just saw it as the person that I fell in love with just so happened to be Caucasian, and we
right,
built a life together and everything else. But I just think it's it's just kind of interesting that some people have to have this type of image where they're going with the majority of things. Okay, well, this kind of white picket fence, type thing,
mhm,
type deal.
yeah.
And
Well, and I think sometimes it even goes a little deeper than that. It's just kind of like a psychological misorientation of, or misunderstanding of things. I mean, he never really knew me or loved me for who I really am on the inside. I mean, he was just kind of like, oh, this is my trophy wife, and this is a life that I want. But he didn't want me to braid my hair ever. He hated me going to Howard University. He didn't want to, ever be in a black neighborhood. He didn't want to, it's like we were going in polar opposite directions. I was so
yeah.
Afrocentric and he was so Eurocentric, and we just fought all the time. Surprise, surprise.
But I mean,
So,
it couldn't. Did it start out like that, or is it just little steps in time where it's like, no, that's a little bit too much earth, wind, and fire for me, man. I can't do it.
yeah. Well, it didn't start out as a healthy relationship, actually, but I was raised to defer to the man, and I was raised very religious, so I really wasn't raised with any refusal skills as a woman. And 2 weeks into dating him, I actually broke up with him because I wanted to save my virginity for marriage, and I felt like he was doing way too much too fast, and so I, broke up with him, and we worked together. I worked at UPS on the night sort. So I was the only female on the belt in Jackson, Mississippi, working the night sort, loading trucks, with packages. So, I got a lot of cat calls and stuff from the guys, and he was like the quiet one. And I made
Those
the
are the
mistake
ones you
of
gotta
kind of
watch out for.
like I made the mistake of thinking that that was then the person I should hang out with was the one that wasn't being all, like, hey,
Hey, what's up,
sexy.
girl?
So yeah, so
Right.
Baby, where you
so
going with that
anyway,
hoe?
yeah, it ended up being just like a 2 weeks into dating him that I figured out like, oh yeah, this is not who I need to be with. But he was the leader of the Vice Lords
Oh,
gang in Mississippi
wow.
and in Jackson. And then so his best friend, who also worked with us, ended up telling me, he's like, he's so pissed that you broke up with him that he's like on the interstate going 90 miles an hour and he's headed your direction. You better be careful because he can put people on their knees and put a gun in the back of their head and all stuff. And I was like, oh shit.
so he was
So
affiliated with the Vice Lords. Wow.
yeah, I mean, I was this girl from Montana. I didn't know what to do. So
Yeah.
I was like, all right, no, we're fine. Like, we can still date. Like, I'm good, like everything's fine. And then I just couldn't really find my way out of that relationship ever since. And I thought, like, okay, maybe once we get married, he'll calm down and, like, well, things will be better and we'll get along. And of course, that didn't work. And so it really took me um, developing as an individual to kind of love myself enough to care about surviving and getting out of that marriage. And um, I think honestly, I didn't really care enough about myself, but I cared about my kid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when Child
Now,
Protective Services said that, like if you don't leave with your son, then we're going to put him in foster care because of the domestic violence, then I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm already on my way out.
Well, you
It's
even
like,
said yourself that you grew up in an environment that basically brought up that you were supposed to defer to the husband. So with that type of mentality, it's like
yeah.
it limits to accepting yourself and knowing yourself and having
yeah,
that type of pride. But yeah,
right.
well,
Well,
we're
and you
happy
don't,
that you got away
yeah.
from that though.
Well,
Now,
thank you. I am too, until like
Yeah.
2015 when it was all like brought back in my face.
yeah.
It's like, imagine getting so far away from that you like never even talk to anybody from your past, and then they end up on national TV and ruin your life. It's
And I
like,
think
Yeah.
gosh.
that's was something that I think me and Cal was before we had the phone conversation that we're having now was talking about is that everything that you do because you've been in the public eye is 100 times magnified.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
I could fuck up at work, and guess who knows who fucked up at work? Bert, and possibly his boss if he doesn't hide it.
Right.
Right.
So, but in terms of you trying to blaze this new trail for yourself, do you find it hard to do that? And at the same time, people can just bring up Google and go, oh, well, this happened at this such and such time. I mean, how does that affect your personal and spiritual growth as a person?
Yeah, it's very discouraging. And I think it's not so much that I feel like I fucked up a whole lot in my life. I mean, certainly I've made mistakes, but I've lived a pretty careful and well examined life comparatively, to the general population. And I think that it's just people pick and choose like what they think they can twist into a negative. So instead of the story being, she did what she had to do to survive or to, care for her kids or this or that, like they twist it into something that's sounds bad. And
Yeah.
so it could be a completely different headline if Beyonce or anybody that was likable, considered likable, did that. Then it would be like, oh wow, she's so courageous. But if I do something, the same exact thing, it's like, oh no, she's terrible. Like that, that's never gonna fly. And so yeah, every day I get hate for how I do my hair. I mean, how I live my life, no matter what I do, and anything that's good that can't really be twisted easily is just ignored.
I'm
So
I'm gonna tell you what I thought when I first I first heard the story and everything about Spokane and NAACP. When you just hear it on the news, it's like wow. and you kind of,
Right.
okay, you don't take it, you kind of take it for face value from when the news is. But I think what really, because I didn't have a negative way to think about it, I was very neutral in it. But when I saw the Netflix special, this is what really kind of hit me. I saw a person that just has a lot of passion about
Hmm.
life in general. And that passion came through, with your art, the way that you are with your children. And I saw a woman that really cares about it a lot. And I think when you really get to, kind of see, of course, we'll never know the Rachel Dolezal that, 100% of you. But I just saw a person that, is really trying her best and, is very misunderstood. And I think a lot of the hang-ups, I think hang-ups is kind of a simple word, but the hang-ups that people have about race was really
Hmm.
unleashed on you,
Oh, absolutely.
and it
Yeah.
wasn't of anything of your doing. These are opinions that people had before you, and there'll be opinions that people have after you.
Now, I
Right.
just have one question regarding the Netflix special, and this is something that's been in my mind since I saw it. Has public perception of you gotten better to where people are sympathetic to your plight? Do you feel like that people are understanding you more, or has it been about the same for the last several years or so?
So the Netflix documentary came out last year,
Hmm.
so it's only been out for a year. Um, and I would say that public perception as a whole hasn't changed because it is Netflix. It's not like everybody has to watch it.
Right.
Now, there has been a change in terms of just one individual at a time that watches it and reaches out to me. I hear a lot of private support, but because the media continues to drag me, even of all things, like Wikipedia's had, the one thing they do have right is that I've always been bisexual, so like that's on there. I think somebody read my book and found that out, but like this month I made a pride post about it. Like I love people for who they are regardless of their body parts, and like that's been, my first kiss was with a woman when I was 18, and like it's been a lifelong thing, but somebody perceived it as being me coming out as bi, and so then that perception got twisted into a huge news story about how the LGBT community doesn't want me, and everybody's like, go away, we're full, we don't want you, like, or you're just pretending to be bi, you just want attention because the black thing didn't work, all this kind of stuff. So that ends up being the New York Post and USA Today and all these places. Just it's like, really. So that just kind of sets everything back, because they then use all the language from 2015 all over again. And the USA Today and New York Post reaches millions of people instantly, whereas, like I said, Netflix, like somebody has to seek that out and watch it and take the time and give it a chance, for 90 minutes or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
so I feel like there have been small steps forward, but it's with private individuals, not with public perception as a whole changing.
Gotcha.
When you were in your current marriage, not current marriage, excuse me, I'm sorry. When you were in your when you were in your
My only
divorce,
marriage.
yeah. Now, I guess they use the term pan eraser for someone that, um, has that wants to be with both sexes, but they're in a heterosexual relationship. Did you always feel that way? And how difficult would that be?
Well, see, I don't consider myself to be pansexual or I'm definitely not polygamous. I'm very monogamous. So depending on, whoever I'm with, that's who I'm with, period, point blank. Like there's no, oh, I want to be with both, like male and female, at the
Yeah.
same time. It's just like you're with this person, you respect that person, you have their back, stick it out, and like there's no cheating. I'm gonna get divorced before I'm gonna move on, type of a thing. So, um, Yeah, that's just. I mean, I'm a Scorpio, so I'm very,
Uh,
very loyal.
my wife's a Scorpio. I definitely know how that is. She is very loyal.
Yeah. So, and I'm also a truth teller. That's like another thing about Scorpios is like have like this sense of justice and truth and what's right. And so,
It
yeah,
makes it very
there was
hard to
no like,
date in this current climate.
oh yeah. Well, I haven't dated in 4 years, obviously, but
What? You haven't put yourself out there. You got. I mean,
no, how can I put myself out there when I'm getting just, I'm a punching bag for society. So it's like I don't trust anybody new and anybody, from the past. There's a reason why we haven't worked out,
look, Rachel.
So
I'm gonna help you out. Can I help you out a little bit? You gotta
sure.
put yourself out there. I mean, I think you are an attractive woman. I think you're very intelligent and you got a lot to offer. I mean,
Yeah.
to just put yourself out there and you gotta think about it. You
Mhm.
can't, even though you might seem that the public persona of yourself is viewed negatively, there's a lot of people who have a very positive response. And that's
Oh yeah,
including
definitely.
myself.
Yeah, myself included.
Yeah, I mean, we were just
Yeah.
talking about that, and I think the court of public opinion is, I believe so, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of shit from people from saying this, but I gives no fucks. And the whole point of it is that I think the court of public opinion is kind of swinging towards your way just a little bit. And I think
Mhm.
that sometimes you just have to take people as an individual, rather as this collective mob. I mean, you got a lot to offer, man. And I think not man, excuse me, because my wife gets upset when I say that term, man. But it's just you got a lot to offer, and I think
Yeah.
you're a good person, and you really
Well,
have to you're
I
kind
agree
of
with
cheating
you
yourself.
on, that, yeah, I do treat people as individuals. I don't treat everybody as the mob. And I do agree that I have a lot to offer, but I also am kind of an expert on myself, and I know that my heart is still too shattered from all the loss, and I don't want to date anybody as long as I'm still in this hostile environment of Spokane, Washington. I'm not going to import quality.
No, I get
I'm not
you.
going to date anybody here. So, it's cool. Like I can be celibate and I can do my own thing, but I also have a 3-year-old now and I was pregnant. I was 1 month pregnant when everything happened in June of 2015. So that relationship fell apart and he doesn't ever want to meet my son, my youngest son. So,
Langston, who is an absolutely adorable kid.
oh, he's so adorable. But at the same time, like he does have, he was diagnosed with autism when he was 2, and that's a lot. Like there's just a huge amount of time and energy that goes into, teaching him new skills and trying to get him to, he's nonverbal. So, you know, speech therapy and occupational therapy and just all these things to get him caught up so that he's on track for kindergarten um, is a lot of work. And so I just kind of feel like I have limited time and energy and resources, and I just really want to get my son Franklin graduated and situated in college somewhere. Exit Spokane, and then maybe my heart will be feeling a little bit more open to pursue
Now,
something.
yeah, I know this
Include
Franklin
somebody else.
is super protective, and I don't see too many brothers running up in there and him not having a word about it neither, man. I mean, he just see
or women.
or
Trust.
women
Like
or
he
people.
is like
I don't see anybody run up there and Franklin not having a ton of questions because I noticed in the documentary that was the first thing I was like, man, for rightfully so. This kid
hmm
is really protective of his mom. He loves his mom.
Well, I noticed that Franklin and Isaiah were both very protective of you. And
Yes.
by the way, might I say, they are very well spoken, very bright individuals. You definitely raised them right.
Oh,
And
thank
I
you.
remember, like in the documentary, like they was showing that Isaiah was checking at Howard University, which was the school you went to. Did he eventually go to Howard University, or did he pursue college elsewhere?
Well, so Isaiah was doing his bachelor's when at the time the Netflix film was running, being filmed, and he graduated with two bachelors. Actually, he ended up getting 2 degrees from University of Idaho, and then he was thinking of Howard for law school, and he applied. He graduated with 4 types of honors, 2 bachelor's degrees, just because I have to have mom bragging rights, and they denied. They didn't accept his application, which was really devastating. And I think, I want to believe that it's not because of his last name being Dolezal, but
it makes you wonder.
whatever. You're like, that's the only place he even applied. So he ended up taking a year off, and he's been working at a law firm here, and going to, like, he retook his LSAT to get a higher score, which he did, and just get everything in order. And now he's going to be going to London in September to University of Manchester for his master's in international relations, and then he plans to go to Australia for law school. So, I mean, he he studied abroad in Spain and South Africa, each for a semester, which you saw in the film. He was heading out to study abroad in Spain, I think, when he was leaving, which is his last scene in the Netflix documentary. But yeah, so he really feels like there's been more acceptance of him and people seeing him for who he is as an individual overseas, like outside of America, versus here. So he wants to really focus on international law, and I think he's going to do great,
That's amazing. And I have to give him the credit to have the ambition and the willingness to think outside the box, to go to London to go to school, and then go to Australia, and like really go to distance with his education and
Right.
his pursuit.
Yeah.
And he got a mama that brings him cherry cheesecake on his birthday. Mind you, that drives an hour and a half.
I love
And
my
I saw,
mom.
man, that cherry cheesecake. I was watching the YouTube video, man. It's fire. She takes the graham crackers, she puts them in the towel and rolls them. Oh, man. I'm getting like hungry just thinking about it.
Yeah, Bert's over here sweating.
Man,
Sweating. I'm getting sweating. I'm 40, man. My man boobs. I got that man boob sweat over there.
Bert,
Oh
I
my
live
gosh,
with my
that's
mom.
too much
and
information.
my mom don't make me cherry cheesecake, and I live with her, so that's unfair. It's easier. The distance is non-existent virtually.
Yeah. Well, speaking of kids, you also saw Franklin's YouTube, like his op-ed piece, right? You heard that?
Yes. Man,
Yeah.
it's amazing how much that he's grown, because it seemed like when you look at the documentary, he's a really withdrawn kid. Not really withdrawn, but he was very
No,
kind
he
of to
was.
himself, and
Yeah.
and it seems like, and even looking at your Instagram and stuff, seeing him with a smile. That's the thing that I know as a parent having kids, when you see your kids happy, there's absolutely nothing better at
Right.
all. And to seeing him to become a young man and active in school, and to just and to be just a pillar of society. I could say that, a pillar of society, and just him being just a great representative of being a good human being. I mean, it's just
Right.
you
Well, I
have to
think
look and just be very proud.
I'm very proud of my kids, and that's also kind of, I don't want to say that, if you date, you dissipate your time and energy, but I mean, kind of, because I'm a giver. So, like, I really wanted to funnel all the time and energy that I had available into my kids and my sister, because there's just been so much going on since 2015, and I am very proud. I mean, that's my win. Like, I may not have changed public perception, but my win is that they're all doing great. They're all, on top and living their best lives and moving forward. And I may still be a little stuck in my situation for the time being, but I'm going to play the long game on that one.
But how do we get unstuck, Rachel? Because
Yeah.
I mean, we have to take time as parents for ourselves too. Because when we
Right.
take that time for ourselves, it actually shows through with the kids, even though your kids have amazing results. I think
Mm-hmm.
that when you take time for yourself, it makes you a better person and it makes you a better parent.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So if
And I
you,
I do that. I do take some time to try and stay in shape, try and stay active, take care of me. Um, but
yeah, you gotta
yeah,
do you. You gotta do you.
I do my best. Yep, I think we all do, right? So,
Now, what's something that someone that watched the Netflix special or read your book or see your Instagram, what's something that we don't know about you that that would really be very interesting?
hmm. Well, probably all the stuff you see on my YouTube channel. You're not going to see on Netflix or in my book, but also just I think that one of the things I wish people knew about the time period between 2015 and now is that I've really not just been sitting in my house, which is what the documentary kind of made it look like. I went to South Africa to speak, to help for 17 days, led a quest for a non-racial South African society. I was invited by the Khoisan Legislative Council,
Oh wow.
and they really support me being me because self-determination is one of their key and core values as a people group, and they are still fighting against the colonial mentality of race. And the government still racializes people even though it's post-apartheid. There's still this sense of we decide who you are, you don't decide who you are on your own, type of thing. So they see that as a very oppressive mindset, and of course agree with my journey or whatever to resist the race worldview. So that was cool. They actually the film director filmed that whole thing, but then she just cut it from the documentary. And I also went to Antigua and helped set up a NGO, a nonprofit down there to reduce recidivism rates for Black youth and young mothers in Antigua, which is a very small little island in the Caribbean. And that I was on their board of directors for a year after helping get it set up and started. And they've been doing some great work down there. And I also went to Dallas, Texas to support Braiding Freedom. There's still an unhighlighted civil rights event in America is that not all 50 states are actually legal to braid and lock and twist black hair. So without a
I didn't know
cosmetology
that.
Wait,
license, yeah,
whoa.
like you have to get a 20,000 um, $20,000, 1,600 hours of cosmetology school for European hair that doesn't teach any braiding, locking, or twisting in order to be able to charge to braid black hair or lock or twist. And so Isis
Wow.
Brantley has led that movement. It actually has gone from 11 states to now there are 26 states that are legalized, which is amazing.
Is there a
Um,
website that we can go on or
yeah,
listeners can go on and look?
braidingfreedom.com or braidingfreedom.org. I can't remember, but
We'll write that
yeah,
down and we'll put a link on the show notes.
yeah, definitely look that up. But once again, like with these endeavors, ISIS actually asked me to come down there and march with her in her Braiding Freedom parade, and so I did. But it ended up being like instead of 300 people that were going to come, like 30 people came because everybody had to boycott me being there. And so that was like,
Jesus.
it's always just very heartbreaking that everywhere I go, there's this opposition and controversy, and people can't focus on the task at hand or the movement at hand. It's always like just anti-Rachel. So,
Right.
like the very causes that I am so passionate about, wanting to assist and advocate for, it's like I've become a detriment to them by my name and by my presence. And that's like beyond heartbreaking to me because I feel like, in some in some situations the best thing I can do is to stay at home, and just support from afar or be like a silent supporter or something because I don't want to drag anybody into the the Coliseum with me or whatever, like that's not my intention. So,
But I think it's very admirable that you still persisted to be an activist and be active on certain issues, that you still try to make things better. That I still find that very admirable,
Yeah, it's
despite all
amazing
the
that you.
controversy, that you still uh, proceed to follow your passion and just try to make a change.
Yeah, I agree with Kyle
absolutely.
definitely. Because it's easy, like you just said, well, to stay at home or whatever. But like Kyle was pointing out, and like I can say things on my Facebook or whatever else. I can make little comments, but it doesn't change anything. I'm not getting out
Hmm.
there. I don't have a sign up. I'm not doing anything. I'm just making little things that I want changed, which does absolutely nothing. And you're actually out here doing something, representing things that need to be represented. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I had no idea about Braden Freedom, and when
Hmm.
we all three of us looked at each other like, "What? That's a thing? You can't braid hair in all 50 states? That's just
Yeah, like
that
ISIS
blows
was
my mind.
literally like
Actually, that kind of
she,
upsets me, to be honest with
It
you.
blows
yeah,
my mind
there,
more than the abortion issue right now.
It
That's
really does.
as
yeah.
surprising as that sounds.
Well, I mean, 7 police officers literally came in and arrested Isis Brantley, who is maybe 120 pounds, soaking wet. Like she's tiny. And like 7 officers had to go in and arrest her for braiding from her home. And this is something that thousands of women have done for like before the United States even existed. Braiding was
Centuries.
So someone actually
yeah,
got
like
arrested for
for
braiding hair
millennia, not even
Yeah,
centuries, like
yeah,
in
for
this day of
millennia, like
millennia.
in
age.
Africa, like braiding has been a thing worldwide forever. And now the United States has decided that like they have to legislate it and you have to pay all this money and do, be able to do white people's hair if you're going to ever do any black hair, and it's oppressive. And I am a single mom. I felt like I have the obligation to spread the word on the topic as well because this is an income opportunity that I've had to fall back on, a skill set that I have that if I don't have a job, I have to braid. And
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of young mothers do, whether you're even people who are not mothers, but like a lot of people who have kids at home or can't afford daycare or whatever, it's definitely something that needs done. People need their hair done, and a skill set that isn't taught by cosmetology schools across the country. So if you just go to a regular beauty salon in White Spokane, you're not going to be able to get some good box braids or get your dreads retwisted and styled. So like you have to seek out a braider or styler who knows how to work with black hair. So
See, Joe here, by the way. This sounds a little bit like the drug trade, like a little bit, or like the drug war, actually. Like
mhm.
it's trying to target a specific race or group of people because they know
Right.
that it's only happening within that group, and it just as you were saying it's just it sounds so unbelievable that they could do something like this, but it's such
Right.
an over the top thing where I could see it not making it to the news, where because
Mhm.
this isn't an all over problem for people. You know what I
Right.
mean? It
Well,
just it
it's
doesn't
not
seem
an all
right.
over problem for rich white people.
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
Yeah.
no, not at
but
all, not at all.
it's definitely an issue that if black women have to risk being arrested just to braid hair, like that's just ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. And ISIS, like I said, like what I that was filmed, but they never showed that in the documentary either. Me marching with that, doing all this stuff with her. So no, so people continue to not be aware, and
Does that
she's,
piss you off? That the fact that even though it's a documentary, you only have so
right,
much time. It was a
yeah,
different representation. I mean, we saw just a very little bit out of the thousands of hours they do a documentary. And when you
right.
saw the documentary, I'm sure did you go to a screening? Did you see it on Netflix just like us for the first time?
We went to a screening, but it was already done. Like we had no input, so it was already wrapped by the time we
Now,
saw it.
now was you like the fuck? Like, I mean, I'm out here,
Yeah, yeah. I
I'm
was
doing
like,
this
where did this
activism
thing
stuff,
go?
and you
And
show none.
yeah, like I went and did all this stuff, which shows that I'm not like I'm still trying. I'm still being me. I'm standing by my convictions, but that got cut. And then the biggest thing actually that really kind of hurt was not just the stuff that I did got cut, but the people who took their time to be on camera, who sat down, who knew that they were kind of risking some stuff to do that, they got cut. So like over 12 black voices from Spokane were cut. They were all supportive, right? So they only showed the two voices that were negative and showed them over and over again, right? So Latoya and Katara, who, Latoya's talking about, she used her black kids to da 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 da, and it's like, says the woman who has no kids. But,
Oh my
like
God.
maybe if you have some kids, you'd understand how like your kids' issues become your issues. So that's why
Exactly.
like police brutality is an issue, like at the emergency level for me, because I am a mother of black sons. Like, I don't have to be a teenager, a black teenager, or a male to understand that topic. Like, I'm a mom.
It's a different talk. It really
So,
is. Like I was we were just talking about that earlier too. That's funny that you said that. It's like it's a different talk that I give my
hmm
son than somebody that's Caucasian that's gonna give their son. If they go out for the
right.
evening, okay, you guys have a good time. Make sure you got your money and your
hmm
keys or whatever else. I gotta tell my son, okay, look, if you're getting pulled over by the cops, be polite. Make sure your hands are up all the time. Make sure you got your license and registration with you beforehand. Just do what they say and pray
Right.
and hope that nothing happens to you. Like when I feel as African American, when I send my kid out, there's a good chance if he's pulled over, he might not come home.
Right.
And that's a real reality for me. And
hmm
and being Caucasian, you don't feel that type of pressure.
We
I mean,
really
yes, there's
don't.
Caucasians
And that's just being upfront.
get harassed and stuff by the cops too, but not nearly the extent that African Americans do. So it's
Right.
very scary. Once your son walks out that door, he might not walk back home.
Right. Yep. And I mean, I have kind of, like a 50% maybe experience of that myself, just because I get marked as either U or B a lot of times on traffic stops by the police. Like they can't tell what, they don't ask you like, what race are you? They just like take a quick look and then they just mark something. So, I usually do get the highest fine for anything that they can put, but that's mostly just also because this is Spokane and the police hate me here because of how I tried to hold them accountable.
I'm
Um,
sure they've heard your name a million times.
oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, but this is before 2015. Like I was getting pulled over all the time, and
Oh wow.
um,
And you were also
marked
doing
as like
Black Lives Matter
black or
protests. Yeah.
unspecified or whatever.
So even before the whole contrary of 2015, you were still known for the activism that you were doing. So
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Locally, like that's been one of the black cops told me I was like the most hated woman in Spokane by the police.
mm,
So
And
it's
there's
not fun to be
murders
in that
out there that they
position.
could be more worried about, but
Oh,
you're the main topic.
yeah. It's
That is,
crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And
it's
when it comes to
2019.
the talk, it also has like a whole nother extension of international stuff right now because, like when Isaiah's traveling in Europe, I'm like, okay, how are they viewing African immigrants in Italy? Like, is that a safe
Yeah.
country to go to right now with the political tensions? And so he always is doing research too, and we talk about that. And like Franklin wanted to go to Cabo with some of his friends for like their senior year, and I'm like, okay, but if you guys drive, you better think about coming across that border again because you could look part Latino. Like they aren't gonna look Latino
Oh man.
like you and this other kid. Like he has a friend who's mixed and looks kind of, like they could be mixed with Hispanic and not white or whatever. And so you have to think about all that stuff with immigration now as well as
Oh yeah.
police brutality.
I told my son that too. I was like, you don't watch it, man, because he's mixed also. We're gonna end up
hmm
taking the trip to Mexico, and somebody gonna leave their passport in the hotel, and
Oh god.
I can't do nothing about it.
Right.
but
Yeah.
there is something that I've been meaning to ask earlier, and that was when you mentioned you've been taking trips to South Africa and that you have been getting a lot of support from that area. What do you think separates America mentality towards South Africa mentality towards race? Because it seems like in America there's a little bit more pushback towards you and your concepts of race.
Yeah, well, there's a specific history in every country, right? And South Africa, the white Afrikaners there don't like me. That's like, let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
But in terms of just the understanding of how we are 99.9% the same scientifically, there is no such thing as race, like races. There's one human race, and we don't meet the zoological requirements for separate races. Like, that's just a biological fact that people continue to pretend isn't there. But racism has been such a powerful way of oppressing people and categorizing them into groups that people really perceive it as, perceive race as this real thing that defines your values, your morality, your IQ. All this stuff can be determined basically just within looking at you for 5 seconds. So in South Africa, there's an understanding of people who are kind of woke and have been paying attention and educated on the topic that, they're, in order to really undo racism, we have to undo the race worldview. And that doesn't mean that everybody flushes their culture down the drain, but it just means that we acknowledge the equality of human life and that we allow self-determination and self-identification. And the government can't tell you who you are. You know who you are, and you can tell people who you are, but nobody else should be afforded the right to tell you who you are. So that's kind of
that's beautifully put.
Yeah,
I love how you stated that.
I felt like an issue that that was something that made me think about after watching the documentary is cultural appropriation and how we as a society are still kind of grasping the ideas of cultural appropriation. Because it seems like that you get a lot of pushback from the black community because of who you are. But it just begs the question, if the roles were flipped around, if you were a black woman trying to be white, how different would it be in comparison to the situation now? Because I think there is sort of a power dynamic with this whole the whole racial construct here.
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm not trying to be anything that I'm not, but
exactly.
that's,
That's
the
who you
vocabulary, I think, is really what we need to question here, because when people say, race is just melanin, but then they turn around and say, like, but if you're albino, then you're black, or if you're mixed and you are lighter than Rachel, you're still black, but
It's
she's
like,
not, or whatever.
We're all human.
So it's not really, like, the race worldview was set up to racialize people according to hair texture, skin color, and eye shape, but that is now really being dissolved by by global travel and just blended marriages and everything else, to where in 2050 the US population is expected to be over 50% bi, tri, quad, ambi, omni, racial, whatever, like,
and
there are a lot of
There's
people
still going to be more problems. People are going to create more issues and division within that.
Absolutely.
Well, but the thing about it is that I think we really need to start changing the vocabulary and challenging that. Like, sure, we can expect that people are always going to, I was talking to Franklin, and I said, like, why isn't blood type, a thing like that? Like, and he's like, oh, I'm sure they would have found a way. I mean, he was like, I'm sure they would have found a way to decide which blood type was superior.
Yeah,
Because you
negative.
can't see blood type. That's the thing.
If it was on the surface, it would have been.
I'm part of the chosen people. O negative. It can go into everything.
Right,
but
it's
nothing
like
can
literally
go into it.
literally, like, it doesn't it doesn't matter what your hair texture or skin color is or your eye shape when it comes to, exchanging organs, like actual, serious stuff. It's like blood type, is the thing that is the physical important connector between people for medical stuff. And yet, so it's kind of interesting. Somebody sent me a message and he was like, I, almost died when I was 7 years old and I had to have a blood transfusion, and a black woman gave blood, because she was a match and it was like a rare blood type. And he's like, so everybody that says like you're only black if you're like the 1 drop rule, he's like, I have more than 1 drop of black blood in me.
Oh, man.
He's like, but it's just like different ways of kind of challenging that whole idea of like, what is race, like what is this that we're really defining, like what makes somebody black, like what does it mean when people say, because of all the work Rachel did, she's blacker than a lot of people I know. Like, what is that talking about? It's not talking about skin color. It's talking about values and,
Social issues.
philosophy and political action and things like that, So
I think the issue really, it brings up, I think, with African Americans, a lot of pain that we've had from the prejudice that we've experienced through a lifetime. And it's an emotional trigger. Like all of a sudden, when you can take it 2 ways. Like when people say race is a construct, because it is somewhat, people can go, well, does that mean the pain that I had to endure as a kid, as an adult currently, does that not matter? And then you have the other end going, okay, why am I being discriminated against? If we're 99.9%, because the world that I live in, that 99.9%, people don't see that. They see the 0.001%.
Right.
And so I think it's really odd when you talk about race, you get emotionally involved. And I think that's what really just brings up a lot, even though, like, even me and Cal, we're wrestling fans. And we was talking about the best wrestling angles that we've seen involve race. And it's not
whether
even...
it's tastefully done is a different story. We just want to clarify that. We're not commending that race is good storytelling. It's not. Like, most things in wrestling are not good storytelling. It's usually tasteless, but it's got to have a good payoff.
Yeah, it's usually very tasteless, but it gets people emotionally involved.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's the more that we were talking about, is that it gets people emotionally involved, it gets them charged up, and there's very few things other than even really sexual things and homosexuality don't get people, religion doesn't get people amped up like race still does. Because, because everybody who is in a minority position has not just one story, many stories.
Absolutely.
About the happening, that piles up within a lifetime, and it brings a lot of just frustration in terms of a society that goes, okay, why can't I just live and be me? Why can't I be a human being first, and African American second? But it doesn't work that way. I'm a black man first, then a human being second. Not in terms of how I see it, but in terms of how everybody else sees it. Because they're going off a perspective on how you look rather than what you are. And even though, do you feel that way in terms of, okay, people are now, they don't really want to know the real Rachel. They're just basing it off of what they think the real Rachel is. Like, does that, because I think that part of what you're going through frustrate me the most. Does that frustrate you equally, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've really tried to be very kind of patient with a lot of the opposition when people are just misinformed, because I really do have sympathy and even empathy for that position of just being triggered and reacting out of pain, because it's like you said, it's that pile up of all this stuff that has been stolen and trampled on, and and then it's like, this is the person who is responsible for that. Then you just want them dead, like you just want them punished, you just want to go in. And I think a lot of that is, and people are directing their racial pain at me as a kind of punching bag for that because they've been told, they've been given these kind of tools or weaponized words like cultural appropriation and race faker and blackface and all, like she's white, she's white, she's white, so anything that white triggers is then sort of like, angled towards me. And I think what you said is very important because the whole process of racializing a human being, like you said, you're a black man before you're a human being. When people see me and they say she's a white woman and that's point blank period, we don't need to know anything else. It's a dehumanizing process because with black man or white woman come a whole list of stereotypes, a whole list of feelings on the last 500 years of race history. And I think that some people just really kind of feel like it's not fair to let me live and be and exist in society before people who are cis black or like born black and look black and, like the darker skin section, not even light skinned black people or mixed people, but like, darker skinned black people need to have like their day first, so everybody else needs to get out of the way. And like, until that pain is felt, understood, and humanized, nobody else should be allowed to, be. I think that's like one sentiment. But I think at the end of the day, like we have to realize we're fighting the same enemy here as far as the racialization practice or behavior of seeing a person, looking at them, and in 5 seconds deciding, if their life matters, how, whether you want to be their friend or not, whether you want to give them a job or not, all of these things.
Yeah, even though I think it's like it's a different pain. When I look at your artwork, I think the isolation that that you have definitely shows up in your art. And even though it seems very, and I'm not an artistic person at all, but it seems it comes from a very I want to say lonely. Is that fair? Kind of a lonely place.
Sure.
And I think the feeling that I get from it is that it's somewhat, because most art kind of comes from a lonely place, I guess. But it comes from a lonely place. It seems like it's beautiful art, but there's a lot of pain that I see in that art too.
It's very expressive, and
It
I
is.
just have to say, looking at your paintings like on your website, they're absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Like, you are brilliant. I mean, you're very talented. Like,
I think I'm gonna need an original Rachel Dolezal in this studio. These just look
Feel
amazing.
feel free to shop anytime you want on my website for sure. I mean,
I will definitely be in contact with you.
Yeah.
There's something in here that's gonna speak to me, and
Yeah.
I've only made it on the first link here, so
If any viewers are listening too, it's on the website, RachelDolezal.com. Please give a look at this art because
Yeah.
because that was one of the things that, even though it's a very small sample of when I saw that in the documentary, I'm thinking, oh, I didn't know she did art.
yeah. I had
But then
no
when I
idea until
looked
Bert
at
told
it,
me.
I'm like, these pieces are just absolutely gorgeous. And I think the pain of it really speaks to me more than anything.
so how long have you been an artist? Like, have you been doing art since you were young, or is this something you just kind of picked up on as you became older?
I mean,
well, a lot of people think I just started doing art, after like 2015 because that's when they became aware of it. So
there's
then
no
they
way that you
imagine
just
like I
started.
just
This is-
started.
This
Yeah.
is amazing.
You can't paint that by numbers, man.
I'll just say I thought I did art. I don't do art after seeing what you do.
Wow.
This is amazing. You are very skilled.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I have been doing it, my whole life. I think Matt Lauer on my first Today Show interview, he was challenging like why did I draw myself as with the brown crayon or like as a black girl when I was 4 years old.
Rachel,
like,
we
I don't
all know
know.
Matt Lauer's on some bullshit now.
Yep.
Well, and also
Yeah,
Matt
right.
Lauer's,
It's funny
problematic is
because
one word.
he was He was
We
like
all have
so
problems, Cal.
condescending in that interview, right? Like he was just like talking to me so condescendingly, and then little did we know, like he's banging the intern in his office, right before.
Yeah, usually,
It's always,
when you're a dick in public, you're usually a dick in private.
We were just talking about this. You Cosby yourself. You pretty much your giveaway. If you're trying to overly correct somebody on how they should be acting, it's usually you that's the one that's messing up. Just like in
Right.
relationships, the person accusing somebody of cheating, usually the person cheating
Right. Or thinking about it.
or thinking about it.
Pondering thoughts.
Right. They're like, are you cheating? Because if you are, I know exactly what I'm about to do.
It's like I've thought of everything. I got a burner phone already.
Like, I just want to see if you on the same page.
I just want to see if I have a good excuse.
Now,
Yeah.
you have a book out. It's in full color. Is this also on audiobook or is this just printed?
Yeah, it's just printed. It's a hardcover book. I think you actually can get the Kindle version of it on Amazon, but
okay.
it's like the ebook. But there is no Audible because it still hasn't sold enough copies to even pay off the publishing costs of that book itself, and so they haven't found any audio publisher that was willing to take it because it's not.
If there is anybody that deserves an audiobook, I mean, you're very well spoken. I could tell that you could make your own book even more interesting just reading it yourself.
Well,
It's
thank
not
you.
very often that you hear somebody. I mean, we're lucky enough to be in the interview right now,
Yes.
speaking with you. But most of the time, you listen to some podcasts or an interview. It's usually a little clunky, and it's been nothing of that with you. I mean, you're very well spoken. You have a great idea of your identity and how to frame your speech. I was a little nervous starting this because this was a huge deal to us, but I mean,
it really is.
Really, we are so grateful for you giving us this opportunity, and it's pretty amazing that you're not only an author, but you're an artist, and you're also out there doing things to change the world, and that's amazing.
We just want to let you know, Rachel, you're doing some good shit out here, man. For real.
Yeah.
And I think
We
it's
appreciate it.
we were talking about like people like to use race as sort of like a way to characterize other people. I think in general people just like to label complicated issues, but aside from the labels that people have given you, what I see in you is you're just simply a concerned mother who is just trying to make the world better for her children.
Yeah.
That's
That's very true. And I'm also, like you said, I'm a creative person, and I cook, I do art. I have always been kind of like a core part of my identity has been to be a creator. I'm always creating, and even amid any kind of backlash or painful times or happy times, no matter what's going on in my life, I'm always putting something out into the world, and I think that that's just kind of part of what keeps me going, keeps me living, is that little element of hope that things can change, things can shift, and what you put out into the world has to come back to you. Maybe not in this life for me, but eventually it's got to come back to me, or at the very least, like what the world hasn't let me do, they've got to let my kids do, because they're important forces, as you've said, in the world, and changing things and making inclusion, like full inclusion, actually understood as a concept. And I think online right now there's just a lot of regression into bullying and
I think
all
that has a lot to do with the presidency.
right.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Well, I
just
think
the
like the regression
idea
with
of
online behavior, it's just been sort of like an overarching problem. That's been something that's been going on, and now it's like boiling up now.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a little sad these days. We're hoping with this new election, maybe somebody that can actually speak like a grown adult will get elected.
Well,
I'm sorry,
and
but I don't like somebody, naming somebody with nicknames just because they
Right.
can't come up with an actual response. Like, just come on.
I
Like,
know. No, it's been pretty insane, just all the different little words that words in the English language that you're like, is that really supposed to be coming from a professional source?
Exactly.
Of any capacity?
Somebody calling somebody Pocahontas. I'm like, that's our president? I'm
Or like
sorry.
bigly, or just all,
Bigly. Bigly.
like these are words. Like,
Oh my
you
God.
know,
Well,
like-
they are now, I guess.
Webster's is like, man, I didn't think we could do this, but now I guess we gotta put it in.
Oh,
Oh my God. And can you imagine if, Obama would have even done one of the things that Trump has done?
Oh.
It would be
He
like
can't even wear a white suit.
all those stereotypes would just come right out. Serving McDonald's to athletes. I mean,
oh my God.
Or saying that we're not going to be helping any shithole countries.
right?
That was verbatim what he said in regards to, I think it was Puerto Rico being ravaged by that hurricane. We're not helping any shithole countries. Like,
Oh
oh,
my
God,
God.
that's our president.
Or how about
Yeah.
naming fossil fuels, freedom fuels? That
Oh my gosh.
just right there, I was like, we're in a simulation. It's not, it can't be real. Like, this is the level that we're at right now. We couldn't have found anybody else.
Although I
Right.
will say this about
I mean-
Trump, it's like, as much as I hate him for his policies, for his action, but if he was like a character in a sitcom, he'd probably be my favorite character in the
Yeah.
entire show because it is just so out there. Now, as a person, though, it's absolutely despicable, though.
He's almost like that, what was it back in the day? There was an old sitcom with a cop that was always just doing the wrong thing, and by the end of the episode, they were teaching him a value. You know what I'm talking about?
But there's a lot of old shows with
Yeah,
cops.
Right.
that could have been a million.
That could
but
be either Andy Griffith or Law and Order.
it's
who knows?
probably Eddie Griffith. That sounds pretty on the cuff. That's, I
But
think
yeah.
Well,
that's it.
like all jokes aside, though, I mean, some of the things are, unfortunately, it's not a sitcom and it's actual real life, and
Exactly,
the
yeah.
things that are going on with kids, being separated from their
Mass
parents and
deportation
put in
and-
cages, and like the sexual assaults that are coming out of that whole, human trafficking, and just all of the stuff with, especially just the kids. Like, my heart just breaks for even 4-month-old babies, and sanitation
right.
issues. That's just beyond the pale of what should be allowed, in the human conscience. And
Yeah, they've been shoving
Yeah.
people into old shut down Walmarts as just a means of just housing them somewhere, and it's basically a prison, and you're housing these kids in this horrible environment. It's not going to affect them in the long
And
term. It's
going to
definitely
any
going to.
Walmart is prison enough.
Let alone one that's shut down.
yeah, without toilet facilities, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's just craziness. It's really absurd that there's not something that the country can do to, override the president at this point. But
I mean, but if we look at it in the big picture, I mean, across the ocean, I mean, in Europe, I believe there's a lot of countries that are even taking in, like 2 million, 4 million Syrian refugees, and, we're not getting nearly those amounts of numbers, but it's still a major problem. I don't even want to know what it's like over there right now, trying to ingrain those people into your culture and make it seem, welcoming in a sense. And I'm sure that it's just as crazy over there as it is here, with the whole refugee topic. I mean, nobody wants to bring problems to where there are no problems, but at a certain point, what do? You tell parents that they have to stay in a gang zone and be worried about their lives. That's just not right.
yeah, it's definitely,
That's a humanity problem, right?
It's right. I mean, there are definitely several human. I mean, there's Sudan. I mean, there's so many just global issues, and then for people to actually invest time in trying to keep me from getting a job or something is just kind of like becomes a little bit even more ridiculous when it comes down to like all these huge, really like big issues. I wish that as human beings we could actually get on the same page and work together to, really improve the conditions of other people around the world, because the big fish need to be fried, and somebody's personal identity really is not that important,
Right.
compared.
And
So,
now, 40 years from now, when we look at, your life, and even if, of course, if you live longer than that, let's fast forward 40 years. Do you think all of the persecution um, that you've realized and everything, do you think this journey that you started, this national discussion, will be worth it? And will it be worth it in terms of Rachel Dolezal, like the things that you've had to sacrifice and the relationships you've had to sacrifice? Do you think in even in the long term, will there be any peace with Rachel regarding this within that time frame, or hopefully sooner than 40 years?
well, regardless of whether there's peace or happiness in my own life, I do think it will have been worth it if a blow is dealt to white supremacy. If by any of this there is an undermining of that colonial view, that race worldview, and white supremacy, because racism really is what started the idea of race. And so, you know, it's not a colorblind theory. It's not all this, kumbaya stuff. Really, what my goal is to undo racism. And by challenging the race worldview, I do believe that could deal a blow to that. Now, whether or not it will kind of depends on everybody but me. So,
Yeah, that's
whether or
like
not the discussions are thoughtful and that perfect debate can be had, kind of is a little bit out of my control. But I do hope that it is worth it in the end.
it's kind of like how you climb a mountain, just one step at a time.
In the grand
Yeah.
scheme of things, these discussions are rather recent,
Yes.
and we still have a long way to go before we as a society learn to evolve and accept those concepts.
I mean, but think about how many people do self-searching every day. I mean, most people go to work every day, they develop an opinion over, most people don't even read the actual article. They read the headline, develop an opinion, and then how much do they think about it?
Right.
Probably for 10 minutes, and then they will die on that mound right there with that idea stuck in their head. I mean, that's something that I'm sure everybody that has Facebook is dealing with. You post one thing,
Yeah.
and then it might have just been, oh, this is interesting, and then all of a sudden now you're in an argument with half of your family over, you know.
Right.
I'm dealing with this actually as we speak, so I'm talking from a point of reference actually.
Right. Which you'll probably have to deal with once your podcast airs.
Exactly. Hey, if it's doing
I-
something to help you out, then
Man.
this is worth it. And we couldn't have picked a better person to come on for our first launching. You know, this is great. It says that you've teached at North Idaho College.
Yeah, I taught at North Idaho College, Eastern Washington University, and Whitworth University.
Oh wow. And
Hmm.
are you still teaching now, or are you looking to get back into that at any point?
Well, I lost all my jobs in 2015, so I don't
My
have
God.
anything, and I haven't even been able to be hired as a maid at a hotel since. So nothing minimum wage or up. I applied for hundreds of jobs and even teaching online and all kinds of stuff, and it's gotten to just I've given up applying. In the last year, I've just focused on building up my, hair and art business to the point where I can get the rent paid and
You know,
keep
that's probably
keep
the
things
best
moving
idea.
forward.
You're being self-reliant,
Yeah,
and
especially
Yeah, I
being
mean,
as talented as
you've
you
never
are.
let anything defeat you. That's pretty obvious. You
yeah. Well, I mean, Malcolm X said, if they won't give you a job, make your own job.
Yes.
So, I've tried to live by his words, and his oldest daughter still is in touch with me. I mean, she's really been a support. She reached out after the controversy all hit, and she's just like, "Don't forget who you were in May of 2015. Like keep keep being yourself. Keep clear on everything, and don't let this shape you." So,
Yeah, because even with this whole controversy and everything, there's more Rachel Dolezal. Besides as confident, there's Rachel Dolezal, the mother. There's Rachel Dolezal the friend. There's a whole thing that we don't see in the media
Yeah.
that makes you. So if you're gonna take anything from this interview, now I'm gonna give you a life lesson. You keep being you,
Mhm.
and don't get so engulfed in this media and the negativity and the messages that people have. You live your life as you, and you enjoy your life as you, and don't let anybody from any news media or anyone outside or any comments that you read take that away from you. You just keep being Rachel, and you keep pushing yourself as a person to grow as a human being.
And also, too, it's a big world out there because even as you mentioned before, you receive support in South Africa, you're receiving support from us, and we're out here in Chicago. It's like it may seem like that you are getting the brunt of the public backlash in this, but there are people that do sympathize with you, that do empathize with you, who do care about you. So,
Mhm.
And I'm definitely sure
Yeah.
after people hear this that you're going to have a lot more fans. I mean, this has been an eye-opening experience. I mean, I was definitely a fan of you. As that sounds weird saying that I'm a fan of you, but I followed what you were doing, and I thought there was a lot of value in it. And now after speaking with you, there's even more of a reason to think that you're an amazing person. And it's for anybody to deny that after listening to this, well, nothing's gonna sway them. Then
Right.
they're lost causes.
Yeah, man. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate everything that the time you took out for three guys sitting in a house in Illinois.
Yep.
uh,
Hey, everybody matters, right?
yeah,
And I really have come to respect the, micro media in terms of podcasts and, smaller time journalists because I think a lot of the mainstream media gets stuff wrong. So I appreciate what you're doing.
no, we definitely want to get the message out that you intend to put out.
Yeah, we couldn't appreciate you enough, and,
Yeah.
and thank you so much. We would love to do this again sometime in the future.
Yes, we would.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll have to do a follow-up down the line.
Heck yeah.
Definitely.
all right, Rachel, it was great talking to you. This was definitely a wonderful conversation.
Well, thanks so much. And you guys have a good rest of your day and good luck with the podcast.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.